Well, thank you all for coming today to our webinar. We have a lot to cover today, so hopefully things will be going, fairly quick, but I will try to do my best to, so like you can see, we have, covering the updates. We have getting ready for W-2s, which is a little segment I want to put in so that as we're getting closer to the W-2 time, it's not a rush at the very end to get your W-2s all squared away. My work, so this is kind of like preparation you can have for W-2s. My work and the W-2s, I want to show you what we're doing with the My Work program and how we're going to be working with the W-2s. And then I want to cover the final notification of the PFA Works time card and cover positive pay as a little, kind of like, remember we have this thing called positive pay. Let's, see if more people want to get involved with it. And then a quick sneak peek at something we're working on coming up in the future. So let's get started right away with updates. All right, so let's get on to the Pro Fund Accounting Works and the updates. All right, so for the updates that we have, we've done quite a bit. Let's go back to the beginning. So we made make deposit show who the customer was on the invoice. So we'll cover that real quick. We're going to make done. So we go to make deposits. And what we did for the ARPs that we didn't have before, let me make it a little bit bigger, is this description. We've updated the description to show who the check was made to in this case. So that's kind of why we really, that's what we did there, just so you could see. You used to just have, different information that we didn't really, wasn't as helpful to figure out who the check was made to. All right, so that got us through 9.6, 9.7. We fixed to allow a double click under the Finder window. So that's a My Work update. So go there real quick. So if we go ahead and plug in time card. For today, so we just have one for today, and we go and we make it an account time card. Oh, good old 4 hours. eSmile engineering, and we go to attachments, and we go to inventory, and we click on the Finder. We added the fact that if I double click that, it actually adds the code for me, and I used one of them. Simple enough for you understand. It's just the double click that we added. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up because there's a lot more we're going to be covering with it. Okay, so that takes care of the Finder here. Then we fixed so that values, purchase the purchasing tab, and that for the saved under the vendors was kind of messed up. So let's go there real quick. So we go to payables, vendors. So the payable vendors, if you go under purchasing, these items didn't used to work. So if you had a blanket purchase order and you wanted to say use purchase orders under the code, it wouldn't save. So if the PO number was 2345111, you hit the save. It wasn't taking the save in the previous versions. So, but now it is. So if I go to next, previous, they show up again. Okay, the next thing that we covered was import my work. The didn't use the old import of my work. My work was using the old way we'd get the equipment rental account by using the account context instead of the from the fund links. And so what that meant was we have that number stored in here under under payroll. We have the equipment, this one. We weren't reading this one, we were reading the one that was part of the account control account contacts before. So if I go to there, right up the tree view is just as quick. We were using this little gizmo where AI. We were using I think it's at level 4, the equipment capital outlay. But you get the idea. We were using the account content there before. So I think we're using, well, you get the idea. So we switched it to use the right one. The fund links is the way we want to be at this point because we want to be more exact instead of, because account content, you can have 4 or 5 accounts have the same content. And then we always had to pick which one it is. And it really should only be one account number for the equipment capital, for the equipment, for the offsetting of all your equipment for payroll. The next thing we did was, let's go back. Next thing we updated was back to here still. Schedule B page not showing up. That just wasn't showing up. It was just an issue there. I don't need to cover that. We changed the order of the records in the journal when importing the MyWorks. We're still actually working on this. Every time we make a change to this, it seems to break something else. So we actually have one bug that was reported this morning on it. So I'll be fixing that as soon as we finish the webinar, and you'll be having yet another update to it. We fixed the PDF viewer to show updated forms. That's part of the same thing. Okay, so reports. I don't cover the reports too much, but Brett did a customer invoice report. So the memo shows up from the things again, and then we modify how it processes the custom reports. So if you do have one of our custom reports, or we did do a custom report for you, get with Brett or myself if I'm available, and we can help you get that to show up again. Right now, if you have the latest version, it won't show up. But what we did is, if you've had that custom report, you've known before, sometimes the fact that you have it messes up the other reports. So we did a thing to separate the current report set from the custom reports more. So that way now you should never have an issue again where the fact that you have a custom report will affect the current reports. Okay, so then in payroll, we updated to show the most current W-4. This was an issue with some of the state and local payrolls. We didn't modify local because right now we don't really have a different local, but we did modify the state to show the latest version of the state W-4 when asked for. We fixed the deduction windows that the state tax ID and retirement plan types no longer overlap. They used to overlap each other on the screen. We updated a message that appears in the payroll address. So what happens there is basically if you try to make a brand new payroll address and you didn't put a code in there, it gave you a weird statement. And then we just updated the authorization zones to use our new message box instead of the old one. Let's see, we fixed an issue in the call log where drop downs wouldn't be cleared. So we just took care of that. don't need to show that. It's just when you had there's a blank, we have a blank at the top of each of the drop downs, and if you selected the blank, it didn't correctly clear the value. We updated the customer payments and cash receipt list to show the bank totals for the items listed in these two reports. So that, should be up there. And then again, later today on 10/2, you'll see an update for looks like for the sort order again. Like I said, we just got a notice on that this morning. So once again, got to keep working on it. All right, let's see, the next thing to go to. The notice. ProFund Accounting Works time card support is now ended. So I told you last year on October 1st that I was going to give you, everybody a year of free support for the time card, PFA Works time card. So it is ended, but we are still going to provide support, but you'll be billed for it. It's no longer part of the normal support package. We have, since then made the PFA Works, MyWorks, which is part of the support package. So you can still get some help on it. We're going to be fairly reluctant to do it, but if you agree to the dollar amount that will be billed for it, we will do it. It doesn't mean that the current PFA Works time card doesn't work. It still works just fine, just like it always has. Well, I should say, just like it always has. The idea here is we're just trying to encourage everybody to get switched over to the new one. And you'll see as why, in a minute here, as things are catching up. Let's see. So just so everybody gets the idea, a lot of work went into that program, but we basically, because of the inability to update it and keep it current, we have to just end it, and we're starting with the web version.
We do have one question.
Okay.
Ashley asks, will this rate apply to new PFA Works customers? I'll be launching this at a road commission soon.
It's not called PFA Works, it's called MyWorks. Or not with an S, it's MyWork without the S. And the rate for MyWork questions, if you have a problem with MyWork, that's still covered by the cost and the support of MyWork. This is only if you have a problem with the old PFA Works time card system, and we have to dig into figuring out what's going on there, and you need some kind of a help there. So the rate only applies when the question has to do with the PFA Works old time card system. They do work in conjunction together just to be safe. And so if you are converting over, you don't have to just end one and to start the other. You can migrate into it. I mean, for the most part, it's working at many locations, and it will still continue to work at many locations until in such a time that we need to make a change where we just can't support the old version. But that, I don't foresee that happening at least for another year or two. So yeah, as you get converted over, but the rate only applies if it's strictly just a Works time card support question. If it's a question, something where, well, in the old one, in the Works time card, it does it this way, but in MyWork, it does it a different way. Those are covered just fine.
I have another question.
Yes.
This is just for me. For the billing, if they have the new MyWork and they call about the old time card, I'm assuming that's billed as well. You will still be billed at the 150?
Yes. Absolutely. So the next topic we're going to cover is, let me get rid of the crying face here, is the W-2s, getting ready for your W-2s. So a lot of places at the end of the year, they're like, oh, my W-2s, they're not coming out right. I want to let you know that you can calculate and run your W-2s at any time. The advantage of doing it now means that if there is something very strange in your W-2s, you can effectively, try to work out any kind of strange data that's showing up. Now, yes, you still don't have all of your pay information for the whole year, but there's no reason you can't calculate them to make sure that all the pieces are correct. So if we come down here to the W-2 forms, hang on, it came up on my other monitor. It over there. There we go. So if we come here and we can select the year, I'm going to just go back and redo 2022. You can certainly recalculate the forms and say yes to the recalc. It doesn't take too long. And I mean, it takes a little bit because it's obviously a W-2. It's a whole year's worth of data, but it doesn't take too long. There we go. So again, this is our standard W-2. Not really a whole lot has changed in this. It's going to be this very same thing. We're not going to be doing anything super califragilistic to it. But the idea is you want to look at, just come in here and just click on modify. You want to look to make sure that your codes are correct, like your G code. There are any box 14 codes that you have. And so the idea is, as well as did it calculate the values, pretty close to what they should be. One of the things that we've had, but basically this way you're testing the calculation to make sure it's going to go all the way through. It's not going to, throw any issues. The biggest thing that we've had people have to get ready for are deductions. If you had, comes up on my other monitor. Hang on. If you had, there's like a lot of deductions here. So if you look at these deductions, we all have the W-2 setup area for each one of them. So if it uses box 14 is checked and you don't have a value in the box 14, it's probably not a great idea. We probably want to get something in there. What should go in there? I don't know. Things like that. And make sure that these are all set correctly. Anything that's set to box 14 really should have a value because we are going to calculate, we are going to spit the value out. Here's your box 12 G for the different types for the, box 12 has a list of basic types. And we show the list as it relates to the W-2 securities from the federal government. So it's a G, what those are. So you get kind of the idea. The thing is to make sure all of your deduction codes are correct in the W-2 setup. Do it now while you have time. So if you have to get in hold of somebody, to find out what the code name is supposed to be in their box 14 or whether it should be a box 14, this is now when, when you have a little bit more time available than when you are under the crunch to get your W-2s out. And you basically just have to make a, game shot on the fly. And then remember, with the W-2s, there's always the case here. You can certainly modify any W-2 with any value that you may need. It's not like it has to be, if you can't get the program to spit out the right number and you just need a box 14 value to have something special, you can come right in here and enter a box 14 value and put a dollar amount in if you need. We highly recommend not adjusting the 1 through 10 or 1 through 9 areas of the W-2s because those are supposed to match your 4 941s put together. So sometimes changes up in here can be a little bit problematic. And then just so you understand kind of how the W-2 form works, when we go to the W-3, and let me get another W-2 up, 9/2022. When we go to the W-3, anything that isn't checked won't get added to a W-3. So when you bring it up, you want to make sure you get everybody checked. And then if you come in here and you ask for your W-3, my bad, the W-3 report, everything in this W-3 is calculated from the values that are in your employees. We don't go back to the database to look up anything. We don't go back to the active data to look at anything. We simply look at whatever you have checked here in your list of employees when we go to generate a W-3 form. That's important to note, because if you make changes to an individual employee, it will get reflected on your W-3. And then, yes, we will have the other side of what's happening with the W-2s, just so you can get ready. We've been covering this before, getting your My ID, is that what it is? ID.me, that's what it is. Getting your ID.me's up so that when it's come time for the federal government to, when you're reporting W-2s, they're only going to allow you to report 10 W-2s on paper. So they won't be accepting the paper forms anymore for anybody who has more than 10 employees, which pretty much is, all of the road commissions and many of our townships. So you got to make sure you have the ability to do the electronic upload. So you'll be creating the W-2 electronic file with an SSA user ID in it. And both of these you get from the Social Security Administration. So I just want to get everybody ready and prepared for how W-2s are going to get applied this year, and making sure that a lot of the little things are covered, especially if you have new deduction codes you've created this year. I really should, want to, accelerate. Make sure you have the proper W-2 information set for those codes. If there is any, a lot of them, there's just none. I mean, it's just it's a deduction for uniforms, or a deduction for something, but if it is like a retirement or a healthcare, those are the big ticket items on life insurance, things like that. You want to make sure that you get those deduction codes checked, verified that they have the right values in them for them to be reported correctly to the IRS. All right, that's a big topic. That is the first side of it. So that's the Pro Fund Accounting side. Is there any questions on that? It shouldn't really be any, but if there are, that's fine. Let's open it up for, a few seconds for questions.
Brett did have an observation.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make sure that setting deduction codes to inactive will affect the W-2 calc.
Deduction codes were changed. There is going to be a change when we, as we worked with the government. If the code was taken, it will be included whether it's inactive or not. Same thing with employees now. We're no longer going on whether the employee is active or inactive. If he's got data that's out there for the year, we're going to be reporting it. Unless you mark it, we'll have a way to mark the employee himself as inactive, but deduction codes, those will all get reported whether they're active or inactive in the new calc as we update the calc, as long as they've been taken. The thing is if there's somehow a deduction code that we need to have, but we don't have, there's no active data in the history for that deduction code, we won't include that deduction code. If that makes sense. That will be kind of a new change this year, and you'll be seeing that, and then we'll have that calculation change, probably sometime in November. So you'll have a couple of chances to run a calc through there to make sure that the right employees are showing up in your list. All right, any other questions?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, let's move on. So the next part is what's going to happen with the new MyWork and W-2s. So we had MyWork up a little bit ago, putting in just showing the double click. Go ahead and save that. And if we come back here, the new W-2s will have a view W-2s, and it'll list out all the years that they have. And currently we've only just calculated the 2022. So you can click on the year and it will give them their W-4 up for them to print. So they can download it and they can print it. Now, a lot of these buttons are going to change, that we're not going to have all these gizmos here for them. So they're just going to have a print, a download, and possibly to the 2 zoom ins if they need to zoom in. And it does have the instructions, so they can do a print on both sides. We will only have no matter what year you pick, it will always be the very latest version of the W4 up. In other words, the instructions on the back change for every year. And currently what I just have out here, just as a temporary, looks like the 2017 one. So all these instructions will be the very latest year. So we'll be getting the 2023 one out there, and you'll get the idea that every single year the instructions will get updated for the proper W-2 to be shown. I just want to let everybody know that that will be here. So deploying these out to your employees, they will be able to sign in with their MyWork and view and see their W-2. And that should be released here in the next little while. We are going to put a couple of things in our current MyWork settings where you can specify the maximum year and the minimum year for the W-2s, and whether you want this to be available at all. If you don't want them to have access to their W-2s online, we just want to make it available. So, all those will be system-wide settings. There won't be any kind of override for a single employee. It'll just be strictly system-wide settings for it. So if you're kind of wondering what I'm talking about there with that, we have in here in the settings, we have a MyWork section now. And so now we're going to have, show W-2s. And then if that's turned on, it will say minimum year, maximum, minimum year, maximum year. That way, while you're working on the 2023s, it won't accidentally show up for a guy to print a W-2 that's a 2023 that you're not done yet. So you'll have a way to, clip that off before we release it. So that way you can continue to work, and then you can just specify, yes, now I'm releasing this date, or I'm releasing this year's, and so the max year is 2023. Is positive pay. The reason I wanted to cover this was, one of the things that we've noticed is, we haven't really received a lot of updates for positive pay, and we expected to see more. So I want to just quickly cover the what, where, and how of a positive pay, so that way you guys can understand what the heck this is and whether your road commission is going to want to take advantage of it. So to start with, what it is and what it isn't. Basically, positive pay is a way that you communicate with your bank on what checks you've written, so that the bank can validate and verify that when that check comes in for cashing, it has a way to specify whether that's a valid check or not. And if it doesn't match what you've sent in positive pay, they won't go ahead and cash the check. So whether, these are some points in here, and if you want to relook at them again on the thing, I'm not going to read through each one of them, but what it is and what it isn't. It isn't a guarantee. It's just a better way of having checks with a minimal amount of effort be able to be cashed. So you want to make sure that these things are happening, for a road commission. They are helpful to help stop check fraud. But does it guarantee there won't be any check fraud? No, it just is, again, it's like anything. We're trying to minimize what we can to make the check fraud more difficult to perform against your checks that the road commission is writing. It is strictly a communication between you and your bank. ProFund Accounting will provide the ability to make that communication. As far as, most of the times they want a file to upload, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So just so you understand, it's helpful to have this in place. It's important, but you got to make sure, A, if your bank even provides a positive pay interface, and then B, you have to monitor it, because the bank is going to say, we have this person's check in front of us. Is this an okay check to perform? So So they will, be in contact with you via email or text messages to say, do you want to permit this check to be cashed? At times when the check falls outside of what's in positive pay. If it does fit in positive pay, they go ahead and cash it. A lot of banks will set, time frames. If you don't respond in a certain amount of time, the check won't get cashed, and then you may get a late fee or some kind of a piece. How banks are billing positive pay, it's a variety of different mechanisms. But a lot of banks will say that if you do use positive pay and they do cash a check that you said was $210 and somehow it became $2,100 because somebody was able to sneak a zero in, and they cash it, the banks will take the blame of that mistake. They won't put it on you, and take out the 2,000. They'll just take out what the original check was for. And again, when you void a check and reissue a check, you still have to, after doing such a thing, you do got to update the bank's positive pay if you are, having it. So there's a lot to think about when going into positive pay to make sure. Let me just kind of quickly go through the how positive pay kind of works inside of ProFund accounting. So if we come back over to the general ledger, we have positive pay. Let's back up for a minute. In to set up positive pay, your bank is going to have a certain record layout that they want to see the checks coming into. So under the financial institutions, we have these two fields for positive pay. The type, this is like the layout that they want to talk to. PNC has one, Huntington has one. A lot of banks use the MI Cash layout for positive pay. If you don't see your bank here and none of these is what your bank is expecting, we will gladly, free of charge, add your bank's layout to our list. So it's not a thing, please don't worry about whether we have it here or not. We certainly can add the layout to the list. So, and like some of the layouts require a miscellaneous code to get added for who the heck you are. And if that's your case, like MI Cash, they need a miscellaneous pay amount code. So we put in code 4. Some it's, it just depends on what the layout is, but this just gives us one more field to put in for extra things that may be needed in it. So these are the two fields that define the layout. So we'll do an MI Cash layout for the Old Central Bank. Actually, we need to do it for the PR Bank because, okay, I do have MI Cash or PR Bank. So when you go into positive pay, first thing it asks you is what bank is this for? And we're going to do the PR account bank. And then it says whether you want to do just payroll checks or accounts payable checks or both. So we'll just do both. And then it just asks you for the start date. And in this case, I need to do 2022 just because I got a lot of old data. And then it will show you the checks that it finds within your date range that are subject for positive pay. So then basically if there's a check in here that you don't want to check, you don't have to. But then you can just basically say create the positive pay file. And we're just going to call it positive pay.txt. But of the ones we currently have, they're all text files. But if they need to be in Excel or they need to be something else, like I said, we're glad to add the formatting that needs to happen that your bank requires for their positive pay file to be uploaded. And then you just basically simply click save and the positive pay file is created. It's really that simple. Then you'd sign into your bank's web interface and upload that positive pay file to your bank to be processed. So very similar to if you're doing ACH, you upload your ACH file to the bank to do that. Same thing with the positive pay. You upload this positive pay file to your bank, and then they will process it. And of course, you need to do this before those checks, have a potential of being cashed. Okay, so this is just kind of the covering what positive pay is. I think you guys should, really look into, implementing this for your road commission as a procedural basis. Just because most banks have it now, it is something that's common. It used to be relatively new and not very common at banks, but most banks have gotten on board with the positive pay. There's places that call it positive pay plus because they do ACH as well. There's other places that have added wire transfers to it as well. So, it can get on and on and on. But for right now, ProFund Accounting is supporting, any physical checks that you write because that's where, the positive pay began. All right. Any other questions or any questions about positive pay, how to use it, how to set it up, whether you want it, anything like that? I'm not a flaming expert on it, but I understand the concepts and, how does it, how would it intersect with your current day-to-day operations with ProFund Accounting? All right. Our good old sneak peek part of the webinar. This is kind of what's coming up. And let me get to that back to ProFund Accounting. So what we've been working on is our account. All right, now if we go into accounts, we have been working on a new account setup program for us to be able to create new account numbers and work on them. It's a little bit different, of course, obviously from the one you're used to, but it does have some nice features to it. Let me expand this out a little bit. So as you come through here, this is the current, this is a test area, but this is the current chart of accounts, 201. You see all the numbers. So you can kind of come into here, and if you need to pick up something like at a 5th level, these filters can help a lot, but let's go ahead and pick that number, and we're at the 5th level, so we could change the name that's here to have a different name at our 5th level, or our at a 3rd level where we have this name. It's easy to get to, so you can change it, kind of a thing. Also, the names we have in here won't show up if you don't have it. Like we don't have, there's a couple of things in here like the description, miscellaneous, and number, the content, a lot of things in here that make it a lot easier to work with. One of the other new things we're adding is the Act 51 generator. So you can specify what line number the Act 51 would use for this level. So you can change that, so like here we don't have it set, so we could set it to cash again and hit click save, and now it should be there if it's working, cash. So what we're doing is if it's inherited, we show it's inherited Act 51 line 1. So basically we're saying because this one has it, we inherit. So it's really nice. I mean, it's got a lot of nice things for what we're doing. I just kind of wanted to show you where things are going, so you can kind of see, where we're heading with it. And when it comes, when it gets released, it won't be such a something you've never seen before kind of a thing. So thank you all for attending, and have a great afternoon.
You are now working smarter with ProFund Accounting. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.